Hey, what's up, zoners? Today we have the top 25 draft picks for the 2025 season. That means we're looking towards the future, man. You can look at this list and see how you finish this year and dream about who you're going to get next season for the next 200 days, okay? We've got players on here that you might not expect, came out of nowhere, so stick around for that. Also, if you want to comment down below on your must draft players for next season, that would be awesome. I've got my notes all typed out, but you got to hold on for 7 seconds. All right, you are looking at a table that I just threw together. The first column are the players' names. The second column is their overall rank for next season, 2025. The third column is their positional rank for that next season. So Ja'Marr Chase is number 1 overall, and he's going to be the wide receiver number 1. And then the fourth column is how they finish this season. So the season is still going on, but still, man, something drastic has to change these numbers. All right, let's start off with the rankings right now. Ja'Marr Chase was the only wide receiver averaging over 20 points per game this season. He averaged 23.9 fantasy points per game, 4.4 more than any other wide receiver. Positional advantage, that is like Christian McCaffrey in his prime years. If you're getting 3+ fantasy points per game more than any other wide receiver, you have such a big advantage, man. Holy shit. Ja'Marr Chase winning people leagues. All right, Saquon Barkley next up. He's the only running back to average over 20 fantasy points per game this year, averaging 22.4. That is 3 more than the second best running back. So, dude, Ja'Marr Chase, Saquon Barkley, huge positional advantages, more so than anybody else this season. Bijan Robinson, he was running back 1, dude, from week 6 on. He was even better than Saquon during that stretch. Holy shit, he should be good again next season. Michael Penix doesn't look bad. Number 4, Justin Jefferson. He has 9 games with 20+ PPR points. Ja'Marr Chase only has 8. So even though I think Justin Jefferson's been bad this season as a Justin Jefferson owner, he does not feel like the wide receiver 2 in fantasy, maybe the last 3 weeks. Dude, but he's been, I guess, more consistent than Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase, he just has that ceiling that is just out of control. All right, next up, Puka Nacua. He is wide receiver 3 heading into next season for me. And he had a wide receiver 25 finish, you can see right here. That is because of injury, but fantasy points per game. So if you average that out, he was actually wide receiver 5, 18 fantasy points per game. And he's been wide receiver 1 since week 11, even better than Chase, but Chase has had a bye. So Chase is averaging more points. Still though, man, Puka is a top 2 wide receiver for half of the season, pretty much. Then Jahmyr Gibbs has 19+ fantasy points in 5 of his last 6. He has been amazing. His upside has always been insane. And it seems like he is at his best in the second half of the season. It helps that David Montgomery is out. But still, man, he is a league winner. He was a league winner last year. He's going to be a league winner this year. You got to pick him up. And then let's see, Nico Collins, man. Same thing as Puka Nacua. He was injured a long time. So he was pretty ranked low as far as wide receiver 20, whatever. But he was wide receiver 4, averaging in average fantasy points per game at 18.7. So Nico Collins, by the time that we talk ourselves into the Texans next year, Nico Collins will be a top 10 draft pick, but his upside is what you're chasing and his target share, especially now that Tank Dell, man, his leg is in another state or whatever the fuck was going on there. The next up, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is the 8th most targeted wide receiver in the NFL. Super consistent. I have not liked his upside, even though he has scored like 30 fantasy points per game in a couple games this season, but his floor is kind of shitty too. But we're looking at consistency. We're looking at the Lions being good again next season. So, yeah, dude, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 5 for me heading into next season. Then CeeDee Lamb, next year, wide receiver 6 for me, still in the top 10. He had a wide receiver 4 finish overall this year, dude, with that terrible quarterback play. So Dak Prescott and him never really got on the same page. They were only getting 17 points a game, 20 points a game for CeeDee Lamb. Last year, it was like 38 points per game. He was winning the league. This year, it's been terrible, all right? And he's still wide receiver 4. So CeeDee Lamb, his floor is amazing. He's going to be a top 10 wide receiver no matter what. So he's got to be a top 10 pick. And then next up, man, Derrick Henry. We're all about this in the offseason. And I looked at the red zone carries inside the 10, inside the 5. It all pretty matched up, but I took his inside the 10. He has the 4th most red zone carries inside the 10, and he plays for the Ravens, man. And he's got the third most rushing touchdowns inside the 10 as well, behind a couple surprising players. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, dude, Derrick Henry not going anywhere, and that team just beats up on people. He will win you like fucking 6 weeks over the course of the season. Kyren Williams, man, leading the league in red zone touches, red zone touchdowns, red zone attempts, everything red zone. And his snap count is at 55. He's averaging like 55 snaps a week, which is amazing because the next up is at 50. Can't remember who that is. And then it goes down like 48. So, dude, Kyren Williams' usage is crazy. And he's like 25 years old or some shit like that. Maybe even 24. He is still super young. So I expect him to be the same next year, man. All right, and the next up, man, Chase Brown. Running back 6 for me. He has a running back 11 finish, but he did not play. He was sharing all that with Zach Moss in the first half of the year. So let's look at this. Dude, running back 3 from week 9 on. So Chase Brown has been a revelation, scoring like 20-plus points in like 5 of the last 6 games, some crazy shit like that. So yeah, dude, Chase Brown is amazing. And then next up, man, Josh Jacobs. This fool leads all running backs in NFL carries inside the top 10, 38, and rushing touchdowns within the top 10 as well. I think he's tied actually with Kyren on a couple of those. But yeah, it's him and Kyren, dude, are running the league as far as red zone carries. And Josh Jacobs didn't get that until like the last, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 games. He's been insane. So yeah, dude, Josh Jacobs, I love next season. I'd pick him up again. Couldn't stop him. Devon Achane, even when he gets 0 rushing yards, this fool gets 20 points a game. As far as like running, he's like ranked 100th as far as rushing yards per game among running backs. And this fool is still running back, running back 6? No, running back 5 for the season in full PPR. So that's not going away. 2 is staying there. Same offensive system. Dude, even in a terrible year, the Miami's been terrible this year. And the one constant, Achane was amazing last year, been amazing this year. The only risk is injury right now. And even with that rushing floor being fucking terrible, his receiving is insane. So yeah, Devon Achane, top 10 running back for me next year. Same thing with Joe Mixon. I think he was running back 3 average fantasy points per game this year, which is ridiculous. All right, so you're getting running back 3 pretty much at the end of the second round or in the middle of the second round. And that is great. And hey, man, is Houston going to get any worse than they were last year? I guarantee they're going to address the middle of their offensive line, the interior of the offensive line. So yeah, man, things should be getting better for Joe Mixon. I've got him ranked high. Then Terry McLaurin, man, this fool, no matter what the matchup, was catching touchdowns and getting and he was actually out targeted by Noah Brown. People were getting worried, but he was still a top 12 wide receiver during that stretch. And do I expect Jaden Daniels to get better next season? Fuck yeah, man. And I know we thought about this about CJ Stroud. All right, we get that. But I believe in Cliff Kingsbury a little bit more than that offensive coordinator over there for D'Amico Ryans. Next up, A.J. Brown. I have to put him in here because if you look at fantasy points per game or wide receiver finishes, he finishes wide receiver 13, for God's sakes, in a terrible year. I've got him ranked as wide receiver 8 right now, but I'm picking a lot of running backs ahead of him if I can. Because after this, all of the wide receivers start to have a little bit of question marks, and A.J. Brown is my biggest one. So he was super consistent. He had to beg for the ball just to get it. But hey, second year in that system if they bring back Kellen Moore. So A.J. Brown, still a top-tier wide receiver option. And then Brian Thomas Jr., all right, setting the world on fire. Wide receiver 6 finish for a rookie right now, and he's doing all of his work in the second half of the season. But dude, how good is this team going to be? Is it going to be a dumpster fire again? I guess it's okay for wide receivers to be on a dumpster fire team, but I would prefer them not to be. So Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, it doesn't matter, I guess. Brian Thomas Jr. is still going to do well, but there are some question marks there for me. Rashee Rice, wide receiver 10 heading into next season, 19th overall. Wide receiver 94 finish, but dude, he averaged like 20 points a game over the first 3 games. He was the top, I think he was wide receiver 3 fantasy points per game over the first 3 weeks. And yeah, dude, if you can get him super late and just deal with, I don't know, maybe a week or 2, we need to check on the injury here, but if I had to even miss a couple weeks, I would still be drafting him pretty high. Malik Neighbors, all right, most targeted, I think he's the most targeted wide receiver in the league, but he's like 70th in catch rate. So that's terrible. Who's going to be throwing the ball? They're like, oh yeah, presumably a much better dude. Caleb Williams came in after Justin fucking Fields. All right. Caleb Williams was a generational talent. And you see how bad that shit turned out. So I don't care about, they would have to trade for a quarterback for me to really care. So yeah, the quarterback situation is probably still going to be shitty next year. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 11 for me. All right, James Cook, I'm ranking him as running back 10, and he had a running back 10 finish last season, so that's pretty easy. But still, I feel like this is his floor. So I mean, he's had a couple big games, but it's mostly been Josh Allen and a bunch of, medium games for him. I still feel like there's untapped potential for James Cook, so maybe I'm ranking him a little bit too low. A little bit too low. Speaking of which, Alvin Kamara, man, running back 7. He was running back 3 for like 3/4 of the season, especially with Derek Carr, and that fool gets targeted more than any other running back in the league. So if he plays next year for the Saints, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like we should be maybe putting him over some other people with question marks, maybe even over AJ Brown and stuff like that. Because if Alvin Kamara plays, he is a top 10 running back. Tyreek Hill, I'm putting him as wide receiver 12 going into next season. Hey, man, he still had some big games this year and 7+ targets a game, pretty much. And dude, his upside is wide receiver 1 in the league. So I feel like I have to put him here because of his upside. But a super disappointing year, wide receiver 18 finish. And then, man, look at this. I got Jonathan Taylor down here, running back 12. He is running back 4 in snap count. Okay, so his usage is elite. And I believe in Shane Steichen. That I hope they get that quarterback situation figured out, man. And you see what happened last game, like 3 touchdowns, 30 points, running back 1 on the week. That's his upside. It would not surprise me if he was a running back 1 at the end of the season. We're like, oh shit, man, why didn't we think about this? So I still put him in here because of his usage. I would not mind taking a gamble on him in the end of the second round. And same thing with Bucky Irving, man. This guy was what? I've got it written down right here. Running back 9 from week 10 on. So and all of the metrics tell us that he is amazing. And the dude Baker Mayfield is not going to be any worse next season. I think Mike Evans is playing. So yeah, they even have McMillan in the wings if they need that. So hey, the Bucks should be a good again with Bucky Irving being a vital part next season. All right, everybody, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. If you actually did like the show, please give me a thumbs up. It gives me the chance to be seen by more people, and we need to be seen if we're going to ever get to 2,000 subscribers, and that's what we're hunting for, man, by the end of the season. So please help us. Hopefully I earned that thumbs up. Hopefully I earned that subscription. Again, man, we cannot reach 2,000 without you right now, so please help us there. This is Tyler Big Turd Ward. Again, man, leave comments on who you want to see in the top 25 next season, or who you want to see out of it, man. I know I put Jonathan Taylor there and crazy shit like that. So let me know. This is Tyler Big Turd Ward. This is the Fantasy Red Zone, and we appreciate